Hello again and welcome to the Luxury of Choice, a B2B sales and business podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan. I'm a trainer and director of George James, and I'm also the host and producer of this podcast. Today I'm with two of my colleagues. Jayne Green is a regular on the podcast. Great to have you back, Jayne. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you, Steve.
Great to have you here. And for the first time with the rest of the team, or another team member, should I say, we have Jonathan Slasinski from the States. Jonathan, how are you?
Fantastic. Thrilled to be joining.
And of course, it's nice and early for you in California, we should point out as well. So thank you for being up bright and early to record this podcast. And if you don't know who Jonathan is, of course, we did do a little introduction to him a few weeks ago. So dig out that episode. So how are things? How's your week's been? Any exciting developments, exciting news from what you've been up to the last couple of weeks, guys?
It feels quite busy, isn't it? It's like this time of year, Steve.
It is.
Lots going on, lots of training to do, lots of different people that you see over a period of time, which is always, I find quite thrilling, actually, sort of seeing lots of different personalities. And I love that.
Yeah, I just love it. Yeah, as you say, there's a lot going on at the moment. And Jonathan, you've been busy the last couple of weeks?
It's pretty busy doing some trainings. And then again, practicing what we preach, just doing some funnel building, right? Going out,
really
calling people,
point.
Prospecting, getting meetings, and trying to move that sale towards close. So just busy doing that kind of stuff. But it's always fun because you're just thinking about, hey, I just did a training on this and this is what I'm doing. So it's kind of nice to have that reality.
But it's a really important point. Perhaps we don't make that point often enough actually on this podcast, but we have to practice what we preach. We have to go out and sell and find our customers and fill our funnel and prospect.
So
and
true.
That we talk about really. So, we're not just people that sit there and get called out, when required. We are selling ourselves as well. And it's great because it keeps us sharp and it's fun. It's the best part of the job as well. But what, of course, we do have to face in any of our personal selling, in fact, anybody that's in sales, is sometimes we get some rejection. And that's what today's topic is all about, really, how we can cope with rejection, deal with rejection as salespeople, and recognizing that rejection actually isn't personal, it's business. So let's just pick it up as a starting point, really. So, what do we mean by rejection? Let's just, it might be an obvious thing, but what are we talking about when we say rejection in business? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I always think of it as that email you get, sorry, we're not moving forward with you, or that phone call, or, when you follow up in a lab, we decided to move on with somebody else. That's, to me, just not getting the PO or not getting the sale, is my mind was what rejection always was as I was in the field.
Yeah, not nice, is it? No.
I think it can also mean, I think a lot of people that I've spoken to recently see rejection is when they've been not answered the telephone to, they've been, this word ghosted, people haven't got back to them. People sometimes see that as rejection too, I think.
Yeah, that's true. We did a whole episode on ghosting, didn't we? But it's a word that I hadn't heard of until recently, but it seems to be a word that's in vogue right now. So it's basically, for whatever reason, customer not deciding to move things forward. It could be very early, I guess, in the sales process. It could be right at the end, really. Isn't it just part of the job, though? I mean, is it something we should just expect as part of the job? I mean, not everybody's going to say yes, are they?
I think it's very much part of the job, Steve. I think there's some things that we can do that maybe help reduce some of that, but I think it's just part of what we're doing. We're looking to create a lot of leads that we qualify, getting the right people, matching up our products, with a great solution, a match. And of course, not everybody, we're not going to get there with everybody, and everybody is looking to buy in a very specific way at a specific time. And we've got to get the timing right. We've got to be hitting the right person, with our right product. So the chances of getting some rejection are very high, of course, depending on how we steer that, I guess.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think, the tried and true salesperson is that door getting shut in their face, right? And what they do after that. I think, though, it's like, how do you handle it, right? Because I know early on in my sales career, how I handled it was much different as I grew and matured and learned kind of, hey, this is just part of the job, right? And I think that personal aspect, because no one likes being rejected regardless, And again, what happened earlier on in my career versus later on in my career were two totally different ways to go about it.
So how did you change? What was the factor that changed, and what do you do differently now then?
Yeah, I think the thing that changed was just understanding this is part of it, right? I mean, when you're starting off as a sales rep and you get a door closed or you get told no, I still remember that pit in my stomach from the email that says, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're not moving forward with your product." And you're like, "Oh, what did I do wrong? Oh my gosh, what's going on here?" And then as you grow, you just realize, hey, this is part of a natural sales cycle. Not everyone's going to say yes. You want them all to say yes.
Yeah.
And I think as I grew, it was taking more of those steps to understand, why did I have some of those failures?
Right.
So how am I getting better at that? And then as you grow as a sales rep, it's just making more of those connections where you kind of have rejection a little bit less because you've done the job, you put in the work to build these great relationships, provide value, where you're in that kind of position where you probably are going to win. You don't win all the time, but that's kind of how my career evolved, was, through going through those kind of motions.
Yeah. So seeing it not as personal, but seeing is a learning opportunity as well. So you're nodding on that one, Jayne.
Yeah, it is a learning opportunity, but of course you can't help sometimes, and especially in those earlier days, but take it very personally. That feeling, you're mortified because you put a lot of effort in, to pull a deal in or to reach out, and that can be quite a blow, particularly if you thought something was more of a certain, and you felt like you'd done absolutely everything, and it doesn't come through. But of course, there's that bit that you said, that actually we can be down about that. And, we do take it personally, as much as we know it isn't a personal
because we're humans.
Reflection on us. We're human beings, of course. Yeah. But what can we learn from that, actually? What can I take from that? Is there anything I could have done differently? And sometimes we can find those things, and sometimes we have to really dig for them if we're prepared to. If we feel a little bit hurt, or
perhaps
it didn't happen.
Away. I think you have get the sort of frustration out your system a little bit, and then think about what do you learn. If anybody's ever played sport with me, they'll know that my competitiveness is way above my ability, and I'm not a very good loser. So I'm off on a golf weekend after this call, and I'm trying not to chuck the odd club around during the game. But it's how do we, what can we learn? What could we have done differently, if anything, really?
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things I love in our personal training that we do, there are two kinds of no, aren't there?
Mm.
No, not now, in which case, when, and if no, not ever, well, at least we know, don't we? We can move on and learn from it, really. So
and it's quite nice that. Sorry,
go ahead.
As you and Jayne are talking, it's about that learning experience, and I think
sure.
As my career evolved, I took rejection as a learning experience to become better, right? So you're getting, so hopefully you get less rejection.
Yes.
And a lot of it came down to just basics, right? Did I not qualify this person the right way? Maybe
that's a super point. Yeah.
Maybe I didn't present myself in the right way, or handle, a certain objection in the right way as I was younger. And then you just learn from that. I always ask, hey, why did you choose to go with this? That wasn't something I did right away. That was something I had to get comfortable with, was instead of just getting that no, why, right?
Yeah.
Why did you choose not to go with us? And then you learn from that. And then on the next call what to do a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But Steve, you also bring up that point about the two no's. No, not now. No, not ever, right? And the no, not now is where I actually was able to get some really nice wins, moving forward.
There's a real clarity, isn't there? I think if we've got no, not now, then we know we've still got some actions to take. If it's no, never, then that's actually really good information for us. We're going, okay, that's fine. My work stops on that particular project right now because that's not going anywhere, and we might log that. Of course, we have to log that and understand, what we could have done. And maybe it's that sort of real searching to say, what didn't I uncover? What did I miss in that? But actually it's then very good. If I could do it again, but I now know I've got some clarity, with this one, rather than it just hanging there forever. Not understanding whether it's going to happen or not. You've got the clarity that it's an actual no.
Super point. Jonathan, I know one of the things that you're very interested in is emotional intelligence in sales. And is there a part here or an opportunity here to use some emotional intelligence in understanding the no, or seeking more clarity, or seeking more information around the no?
I think that there's two, things that are here, right? First of all, it's the social awareness, right? Being able to kind of read what's going on in that sale, right? Who are the people that are involved? What's going on? And then the bigger component to that is relationship management, right? Relationship management is about your goals and their goals, and combining those two together, right? So you have to understand kind of what's going on. So huge component to that, to understanding, how this is going on, to hopefully reduce, your rejection. But again, it is an emotion, right? You're going to feel an emotion when you get rejected, right? So then that becomes to, okay, how do I deal with that, right? That's my self-management, right? How do I kind of go, get over that emotion, that hurt or whatever it could be, to move on to the next thing. And just, again, learn from it, right? Grow from it. If you've got that relationship in place, hopefully that's the no, not now, right? Where we can do some other things later on. But yeah, big kind of, place where EQ fits in here is about how do you understand your customers? And then again, how do you deal with it yourself, right? When you get that rejection.
Yeah, that's a super point, because it's a business decision. It's not a personal one. I guess in some worlds it could be, but have a straight out and out personality clash with the customer. But I think in normal business situations, it's a business decision rather than a personal decision. So, it's important that we care. We care that we've got the no, but we don't take it personally. I think sort of bounce back from the defeat. Really, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit like riding a bike, isn't it? I was just thinking, I can't actually remember riding a bike myself, but I think I had stabilizers, and obviously at some point they came off. But I do remember very clearly, I have 2 sons, helping them to learn to ride their bike. And I hope they're not listening to this. Sorry, boys, if you are.
Please write in if you are, boys.
But I remember with one of my sons just thinking, do you know what, let's not bother with those stabilizers. Let's just go for it. Wow. Of course, there was a lot of times that he was off the bike rather than on the bike, sometimes in a hedge, sometimes in a wall. But he eventually, they look like failures when, you're in the middle of a hedge, when you're trying to ride your bike, or you're on the pavement. You have to find a way of picking yourself back up and go, oh, I want to do this, and and I think it's a bit like that with selling, isn't it? We have some rejections, but it doesn't stop us doing our job. Doesn't stop us going, I'm going to get back onto that. And I know that I'm going to find a win here. I know that I'm going to be able to, to find my way forwards and navigate this. And eventually, of course, my boys learned how to ride a bike, and they had some scratches along the way. And it's a bit like that with selling too. We pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves off, and we carry on, and we go on to that next opportunity, that next customer that we're dealing with. And we learn. We learn a little bit. We've got stronger from some of those past areas that felt like could have been rejection, or it just didn't work for us.
Jonathan won't know what I'm talking about now, but there used to be a football game for kids called Sabitio, where the footballers were in like a semicircle domed mould, and you'd flick them and they'd fall over, but they'd bounce back up again, really.
Yes.
So it's like being a Sabitio footballer. You're looking at me blank now. Google it.
Or Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down.
Oh, yes, that as well. Yeah, I remember that. Gosh, we're showing our age now, guys.
But Jayne, I love what you said, because first of all, as a sales reps, this is part of the job, right? And
it is.
Now it's how do you get back up, right? And I think as part of our job it's not just one deal. We're working multiple deals, right?
Yes.
So if you don't get this one, okay, hopefully we've done enough work for the other ones.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because like the no, not now, right? Great. That's going to be the key to kind of going through it. But I've worked with sales reps where the no, not ever became like their challenge. And they're like, I am going to sell that person something.
Wow, really? Yeah.
And it would be this kind of thing like, oh my gosh, I'm going to, in nice ways, professional ways, about just interacting with the lab, building a relationship around it to get that no, not ever to, okay, yeah, let's do some business with it.
So
I
seeing it as a personal challenge.
Okay, let's move on and figure out where else I can go.
Yeah, me too.
But I always loved seeing the reps that took that as, this is my challenge now.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. Perhaps I wasn't as bold as that, really. But yeah, no, I love that as a mindset, certainly. Does it matter when in the sales process we get the rejection? You mentioned qualification earlier, Jonathan, and that's something we talk a lot about in our training. But does it matter when we get the rejection? Is there a factor there to think about?
I definitely think that we always want to look at timing, right, of everything. And I will say most of my rejection usually came at the end, where it was a decision of me versus somebody else, and you get that kind of note.
Yeah.
But the earlier the better, right? I mean, if you can know that you're not going to be winning this earlier, that allows you to kind of move on, right? This lose fast, lose early type of thing. But as I said, in my career, most of my rejection was basically at the end of the sale, where it was between me and another competitor, and maybe they went with the other one, or they didn't get funding at the end, things like that, that falls through.
So I guess what we're saying there, Jayne, is that we can be the one that gives the rejection. We can reject the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think qualification, as I said this week to a group of people, it's possibly my favourite word right now.
Yeah.
Because it gives us, it puts us in a really interesting place to start, to understand, have I got all the criteria that I really need to understand, right from the get-go, from the very beginning, what this customer's needs are, what this is about, actually what that means commercially to them, to make a decision, through that is actually, is this customer going to be really good business for us, as well as us being, providing something, a great solution for them? Is that going to be really kind of worth the best use of my time as a salesperson?
Good point.
And so, if we realise it isn't, or it's going to cost us an incredible amount as a company, and the return on investment for all of that resource and time isn't going to come back to that, then we do have a time to say, no, this isn't the opportunity that we need to be spending our time on right now. So, we can have that opportunity to say no, I think.
So rejection works both ways.
I think so, yeah. I hope customers then don't feel rejected.
You've got to prove yourself to be my customer. No. Jonathan, I know you live on the West Coast, but I think originally you're an East Coast guy. Many years ago, when I lived in America, I think I've told this story before on this podcast, but anyway, 20 plus years ago, I went to a one-day sales workshop somewhere in New York, and the guy running it told the story of his first sales job, which was selling door-to-door insurance in the 5 boroughs in the 80s, which, yeah, exactly. New York was quite a violent place in those days, and his job was to go and bang on doors trying to convince people to buy life insurance. And his boss gave him a card, and on that card, the word no was written 50 times. And every time he got the door slammed in his face or, perhaps something a bit stronger, he was told to cross off a no. And if he came back at the end of the week with 50 no's on that card, he got $1,000, which was a lot of money then, a lot of money now.
Yeah.
And of course, the reason his boss did that, he knew that out of those 50 no's, he'd get at least one yes.
That's an incentive, isn't it?
Yeah,
that really is.
And the reason I tell that story is it is a numbers game to some degree, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
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 So recognizing that every time you get a no, you're one step closer to a yes.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make into life insurance guys, by the way, if you listen to us, but it's an example. Yeah.
Very applicable to cold calling, right?
Yeah, it is.
So again, what Jayne's talking about is qualifying, right? We want to have these opportunities that are really well qualified. We know whether we're going to win, or we know if it's not the right fit, and then kind of that's where we reject him.
Yeah.
But cold calling, I love that. You should have a card with 50 no's, because when you go cold call, you go to different labs, or you don't get you don't hear back from somebody. That's exactly where rejection and that no plays in for the cold calling aspect of it.
Yeah, perhaps we could do a branded George James no card, but no, that's another topic for another day. But yeah.
I sort of have another take on that, which is possibly avoiding the noise that the no's happen, but I'm so keen on the yes. So I reward myself. Most people I've trained I've talked about this. I like Maltesers, just saying Christmas is coming up. So I line them up on my desk. So I have this little row of Maltesers.
Do you get Maltesers in the States, Jonathan?
No.
No, we'll explain what they are.
It's great. It's like a honeycomby chocolate-covered round delight, basically.
Oh, delicious.
Oh, they're great.
And they're tiny. It's like what I keep telling myself. So I take yes as even being a phone answered, but they've picked up. That's great. After that, I'll have a Malteser. But basically, a good conversation that's going somewhere, I reward myself with a Malteser at the end of it. So it's just the opposite. It's the flip side, isn't it, of the nose?
That's a great
And it
point.
takes. I might have 5 calls, 10 calls, nothing happens. 15 calls, nothing happens. I've still got my 10 Maltesers out there expecting I'm going to be eating them. And I carry on until I do.
I should just point out this show isn't sponsored by Maltesers. There are other forms of confectionery available.
I won't mention the word again. I'm sorry.
But Jayne, I love how you're talking about it now from the flip side of rejection, right? Which is that yes, right? Because I was thinking exactly as Steve was talking about the gentleman with the card with the 50 no's. No. How good does it feel when you get that yes, right?
That's great.
And that's the emotion that you really want to focus on, because that's what you want to get out of your next opportunity or the opportunity after that. And I love setting up your little reward system. It's fantastic. Okay, I got an email back. I get to get my my little reward.
I can have one of those rewards now. Yeah.
If you close the sales, you have the whole bag.
But the wins are great too, right? So I love how you flip it and you see what that win feels like.
Absolutely.
Super. Great stuff. So rejection is part of sales. It's normal. It's something we need to, understand. It's not personal. Have you got either of you got an example of where sort of rejection, or you bounce back from a rejection that came around into something more positive at the end? Can you think of an example in your own personal selling career or something that you've seen happen? Put you both on the spot there, so hopefully you've got one.
I've got several.
Great.
Which is quite interesting. I mean, so one of the ones that was kind of a real biggie for me in my early days of selling, it was actually can I say the brand? It was a Mettler-Toledo Balance, Steve.
Of course you can, yeah.
It was one of those with the automated sliding doors, the ultra micro balance, yes. And I remember taking this, I think you probably trained me how to sell them, to be fair.
Despite that, you got the order.
Eventually, but it took some time. I remember taking this piece of equipment in, got to demo stage and taking it in to see the customer. And I don't know what it was. The customer was not in the best mood. And I was then thinking, was I not in a good mood? Is he reflecting my behaviour? And did the demo, and it all seemed to go great. And other people were really fantastic about it. But the guy that was making the decision was not impressed. And I could not work out why. And I just remember having to take this machine back down 6 flights of stairs because the lift wasn't working. So by the time I got back down, I felt really low. Like, it was fairly early days, and I'm like, this is just not good. I remember reaching out to him, and he didn't seem to want to talk to me. And I remember taking it really badly, thinking, I failed. There's something I've missed. There's something gone wrong. Anyway, it turns out it wasn't that at all. The customer had got a whole load of other stuff going on in his work, in his private life. And we don't hear about that, do we? We don't quite know what we see or what's actually going on the other side of the door or the other side of the telephone. And it took a couple of months to get resolved. And then the guy came back very apologetic for having, not kept in touch and not been very positive. But it took a lot longer for that order to come out. But I remember feeling the pain of that for quite a bit of time. But it took 2 or 3 months to resolve with very little we could do apart from being really patient and not write it off.
Yeah, no, super example. And as you make a great point, sometimes there's stuff going on in the background in the customer's world that, for whatever reason, we're not party to. So again, it's not personal, guys. It's business, it's life, isn't it? Really. So, Jonathan, have you got anything you can think of as well?
I always think back to kind of my bio-ride days when it was really, just everything we sold, there's 2 or 3 other competitors around, right? So it was always like, all right, what am I doing the best I can? Am I showing them the value I can? And I was selling a Bioplex product to things at Walter Reed at the Army at the time. And it was a very, very large sale for beads. And, unfortunately at the end of it, where I thought we had a pretty good proposal put together, it just didn't fall our way. And I was gutted because I was like, oh, this is going to be a good sale. This is a lab that we didn't have a foothold in. But the best part about it was that was a no, not now, right? And I was working with her and just talking about different ways we can help. And one of the things was software, right? I was like, hey, look, I think the Bioplex software is much better suited to what the kind of work you're doing. And we started solely from that, So, it was no for the beads, but it was a yes eventually on the software. Then they got to see how well the software worked. Then they wanted to see us for another instrument. Then they wanted to see us for beads, right? And it was taking that no, but really kind of slowly building it up to where can we provide the most value? Where can we fit? Where can we
Great
win?
example. Yeah.
It was really cool. Yeah. Again, but that was a no, not now, right? And I loved the fact that I had that opportunity to still go in and provide value.
Keep the contact very good. And just recognize if, we can't get in with this particular route, really, we can get in through another way, really. So one of the things I've always thought about that perhaps salespeople don't understand sometimes is that they are like market research as well as salespeople. Yeah. They can feed the voice back of the customer back to their own organization. So is there something here that if we are getting a lot of rejection, that possibly there's something we need to think about in terms of the product or the price or the market or the way we position the product? Is that something that comes into this as well here? We might be getting a lot of rejection because, frankly, we need to do something about the product or the price or something. Would that be the situation?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly can be, can't it? I think, if we see that there's a gap maybe that we're not quite filling, or there's something that we're not quite meeting when, we're talking about this a particular product range or a specific product, we're not fulfilling it. Feeding that back up into the organisation is fantastic. Product information, market insight, that's valuable information to know and to have, isn't it, back up? Because we have to then analyse, why aren't we winning the business? And we have to look at that on multiple levels, isn't it? Could I personally do anything differently? Is that something that we need to look at within product development? Or, or sort of what are we looking at? Or have we priced ourselves out of the marketplace? Can we do anything with that?
So the learning that we can get from rejection isn't just from our own selling style or our selling approach, it's also learning for the business and the product as well, Jonathan, perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, I love that we're thinking now from our side and what the company is able to do, right? But again, I think this all falls into this thing of rejection is not personal, right? It's part of a business. And again, if you don't have a product that's meeting needs or doing something, I used to remember, with our CRM, it was always the win-loss reports, right? So marketing would constantly run these win-loss reports. And why are we losing? And if the price was the biggest thing, okay, well, maybe they need to figure out that this is, we're not priced, Jayne, as you were talking, we're not priced appropriately in the market. Or if it was a feature that, people are really kind of hung up on, do we have to change it? Do we have to come out with a V2 or V3 of this? But I love that, again, rejection is not personal, but it's also not always on the sales rep, right? It could be, the foundational stuff that they're selling that has some things that are not ideal in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. You just reminded me, actually, Jonathan, it's a slight tangent, but when I came back from living in the States, this is 2003 now, gosh, and this is all in my LinkedIn career history, so there's nothing confidential here. I joined Shimadzu as a sales manager for the UK and Ireland, and one of the first things I told the sales team was that they didn't lose enough orders, and they all thought I was bonkers when I said that. But the reason that I said that was basically they were living within their own bubble of customers they knew. They weren't knocking on doors and getting rejected. Because when you do move away from your existing customer base into your competitors' ideal customers, you're going to get rejection, aren't you? Because, they're using your competition, but that's what salespeople have to do. And I think if we live within our own bubble of the market we know and the customers we know and know us, we're never going to get rejected, but we're never going to grow our business, are we?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so do I, because you speak to, I think, a trap that a lot of reps fall into is like, hey, I'm going to my core customers and I'm going to grow them. Or, again, at Bio-Rad, very competitive, everything we were selling. But one of my favorite things would be going into an in vitrogen lab and trying to sell them our gels, right? And sure, you get a lot of no's about that because they're set, they've got their whole system. But when you got that demo down and you got that win, that's that yes. But it comes to those other skills about prospecting. Where are you really looking to go get your business? And I love kind of what you said. If you're not getting enough no's, are you in the right pool? Are we really doing the right things to kind of grow our business?
Absolutely.
I love looking at it from that perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts from you, Jayne, on rejection and no's?
Well, sort of on the back of what both of you have just said, I kind of feel that we have to. Maybe we don't like no's because in our comfort zone we feel really, we want to be safe, and that no challenges us. So I've just been thinking about, if we're going to get some more no's and being comfortable with it, let's be it because we're outside of our comfort zone and we're trying some new areas. We're making some new, steps. We're being entrepreneurs in the way that we actually think. And strive for look for new business. And that will inform us a little bit more about where we're going or how we need to modify what we do. And it gives us a really good chance to look at, the way we do things again and, how do I handle that? I think it's a good reminder for all of us. So reminder for me, it's not personal, but what can I do about it? Can anything be done about it? How do I look for the next yes?
Great stuff. And a final thought from you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I just think the first thing is just it's not personal, right? And you have to understand that, even though, again, that's that raw emotion. Just no one likes it, be told no. But it's what can we do? How do we learn from that no, right? And I think it's asking a few more questions, learning why that no was given. And then again, hoping it's a no, not now, right? And how do we keep building and showing value to be able to win something?
Yeah.
But it's right. It's one of those raw things, and I don't, it's the no's
part of the job,
no, right? But again, I also like what we were talking about, that flip side of remember how good a yes feels, right? So you're going to get to a yes eventually.
Yeah, a whole bag of Maltesers.
Yeah, whole bag. Oh, yes.
Friday evening, yes, yeah. I'll come round to your house to eat some Maltesers later, Jayne.
They're all mine. Steve, no.
I hope you found this episode useful. If you got any suggestions for future topics for the Luxury Choice podcast, we would love to hear from you. You can contact the show through email address. It's just podcast@georgejames-training.com. Or, of course, if you know any of us personally, you can drop us an email or find us on LinkedIn as well. One thing we are interested in looking at in more detail in a future episode is AI and how much salespeople are using AI more and more in their business. And we'd love to hear some examples or some questions or even some concerns about using AI. We are planning to do a special episode around the whole topic of AI in sales once we know a bit more about it ourselves, perhaps. But, in all seriousness, if you've got a particular interest in the power of AI in selling, we would love to hear from you and explore that more, and perhaps even have you as a guest on the show. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed this episode, to leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. It does help the show in lots of weird and wonderful ways. We'll be back again in a couple of weeks' time. Until that, happy selling out there, and we'll talk to you soon.